being in real estate, you have a front row seat to a lot of the good deals. I don't know about where you're at, but up here, we can still find really good deals on MLS. So we're seeing deals day in and day out. Right now, being in it for 15 years, I can see one pop up and go, boom, let's just write it up. I don't even need to go look at it. Let's write it up. I know my purchase basis. I know my ARV. So having that front row seat has been critical and an opportunity that the majority miss.
Welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Podcast, your source for real-world strategies focused on creating long-term wealth, cash flow, and financial freedom through real estate. Through guidance, tips, and stories of highly successful real estate investors and thought leaders, we provide you the tools to succeed and to reach the lifestyle you always wanted. And now, your host, Dwaine Clarke.
Hello and welcome to the Wealth Through Real Estate Investing Show. This is your host, Dwaine Clarke, and today we have Joe Bell. Joe's a real estate and wealth coach and founder of Legacy Beyond Listings, as well as the author of Assets, Acquisitions, and Abundance, a guide to building true wealth and legacy through real estate. Joe, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Dwaine, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing very well. Well, I'm very definitely. There's a very interesting topic. We had mentioned just pre-call, kind of like the listener base, and we have all sorts of different listeners, active, passive investors. But being an active real estate broker, having my own firm, and we have kind of similar backgrounds. So definitely very intrigued by this topic. But before we dig in, would you mind kind of sharing your background, how you got started in real estate?
Yeah, so I come from baseball. Baseball was my past. When that dream died a very fiery death, I didn't know what to do. So I just went into coaching, natural coach. And, I just fall into those relationships easily. And through that coaching relationship, I ran into a real estate professional that had been in the game on the commercial side for about 25 years. And I kept, just poking him and prodding him. Hey, get me into real estate, help me getting into real estate. And finally he was like, yeah, I'll help you get into real estate, but first I need you to open this bar for me. All right, well, let's see where this rolls. It's kind of, at that point I was probably 24, 25. And in my mind, it was like every dude's dream to open a bar, right? So I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. So I got into it. The previous bar had some issues. I went in to open it up to maintain the liquor license. And I lasted about 8 months in that grind and realized counting money at 3:30, 4 a.m. and then getting up to receive stock at 9 a.m. was just not my grind. That was not my zone of genius by any means. And so we had a lot of fun, but I came dragging with my tail out and I was like, all right, now help me get into real estate. And he's like, cool. Here's a phone book and a piece of paper with a pencil. Go start making some calls. So I got in the grind. That was 06 when I got my license, and I was able to, really start jumping into that world.
And as far as kind of like, as I mentioned, I'm also operator as well. Through your background, you also got into real estate investing and then building systems and like a whole bunch of intricate. Can you kind of talk about that transition from you initially got your license and you just kind of start off just how most people just get into the game, just start pounding the phones and then kind of building in system to kind of alleviate building a team in order to kind of excel your business?
Yeah. So what's fun is I've played almost every iteration on the side of a real estate professional in the industry outside of running phones as an admin or anything along those lines. So the first 3 years, there were moments where my girlfriend at the time would be like, Joe, why don't you just go get a job? Like, you're a smart dude. You've got a degree. Like, I see you struggling. You're not really making any money. And I just kept telling her, I'm like, hold out. Right. I mean, if you think back to 07, 08, 09, I came up in a very challenging market, which is an absolute blessing because as soon as that market started to rise, right, all boats float with a rising tide. I went with it. And so by 09, I had my first 6-digit year. gross, right? And from there, I was like, okay, now we can start doing something. We bought our first property with the intention of turning it. And then by 2012, I had become an assistant CEO for one of the larger brokerages in town. I had built the team out, I had leverage, and for the next 3-4 years, I mean, we just hammered on it. We were doing 100 to 130 transactions a year, built-in leverage, built-in systems. During those years, right, Craigslist hadn't been battered and bashed as much as it has today. So we were turning a lot of leads off of either pay-per-click or Craigslist ads, and doing really well off of it. But I realized like that wasn't really it was bringing me a lot of money, right? We were right on the precipice of doing 1 million a year, but it wasn't the type of gratification that I was really looking for. And so along this process of bringing in some more funds, we now started jumping into the flipping game as well. And how we did that was through an investor. We took an investor relationship, and again, I kept poking and prodding. I mean, that's kind of my game, right? So what I lack in talent, I make up for with persistence, and it works every single time. So I just know I got to keep knocking on enough doors, asking enough questions, having enough conversations, and somewhere along the line, I'm going to have a conversation, or I'm going to have a relationship that helps me leverage to whatever level I'm looking to achieve next. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And then also you kind of said a couple points that kind of piqued my interest there regarding, like I said, that transition over into the investing side. Because a lot of the real estate professionals know that if you don't sell anything, you don't make any money. And then there's another question of how long do you want to keep doing is regarding sales and grinding. You felt that when you started the bar business. So it's like, people at some point is like, what's next? What's my legacy going to be? How am I going to
Right.
continue to bring in cash when things like the 0809 period, or just things are slow down, or are you just starting to get beat up? Can you kind of talk about for people then that next step of legacy? And you had mentioned just the story of just tapping into an investor, and that's kind of like the beginning start. But that
Yeah.
next intricate piece of a person's career where they said, I'm looking for something that's well beyond the sales side.
Yeah. It's one of those scenarios where wh- at the moment, right, I didn't really realize what I was doing. But since '06, '07 timeframe, I always had this voice in the back of my mind. I ran into a old crony real estate professional, and he said, Joe, welcome to real estate. But you really get into real estate to buy real estate, right? He was all gruff, old guy. And that stuck with me. I was like, okay, that's a piece of the equation I can see for myself down the line. I didn't quite know how I was going to get there, but just being having a sports background, I was very competitive. I naturally fall into goal setting and everything along those lines pretty easily. So it was just, okay, what is the next echelon look like? And at the time, '06, '07, '08, it was just making money in real estate. Then we got to '09. We're now making some money in real estate. It's like, okay, now we need to go get an investment property, because that just seemed like the right thing to do, right? And then from there it was, okay, now how do I increase my sales? And the whole time you're looking around your environment, going, all right, who's in my network? What opportunities do I have? And I just continue looking towards the horizon on whatever it is that makes sense in my life, in my world. What's that next best step? When looking at where I wanted to get to, right, there's specific activities, and being focused on the activities, not necessarily the results, but being focused on the activities, right? As a baseball player, I could go, I want to increase my velocity 3 to 5 miles an hour off of the mound, because I was a pitcher.
Hmm.
And the activities were to go build your core, build your legs, focus on mechanics. And so it was a very easy transition to go, okay, I understand that side of the world. And if I just apply it over here, where there's specific steps, specific activities, wherever I want to go in my world, in my life, what makes sense to me, right? I just focus on that next best step and what I could do day in and day out to help achieve that, right?
Hmm.
And in real estate, I mean, you understand this, like, it's a high contact sport. That is probably your number one activity. you could hide in the corners, you could do all the analysis, you could find all the properties you want, but if you don't go and talk to people, don't go and ask them for money, don't go and ask them to take part in what you're doing, like you're going to stay right where you're at. So continuing to look at what's that next best step and what are the activities to help get me there, that's where we need to focus.
And then it just kind of further your point, because you kind of touched on it in regarding to, you said another person had mentioned you get into real estate, to buy into real estate, tapping into the existing context that you already built into the real estate business. So maybe investors that you helped, buy a property or fix and
Yep.
flip. Now you can start tapping into and say, hey, we're also into the business as well. Like, and trust me, the types of properties that I've shown you, these are maybe the same similar things that we're trying to do. Can you kind of talk about, I know, just furthering that, those touch points and just building those relationships, which is kind of key in this type of business?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of conversation about this point specifically. Being in real estate, you have a front row seat to a lot of the good deals. I don't know about where you're at, but up here, we can still find really good deals on MLS. So we're seeing deals day in and day out. Right now, being in it for 15 years, I can see one pop up and go, boom, let's just write it up. I don't even need to go look at it. Let's write it up. I know my purchase basis. I know my, ARV. So having that front row seat has been critical and an opportunity that the majority miss, right? So in 14, I took over running a brokerage of 350 licensees. We were doing about $1 billion in business. And so I naturally am coaching some of our higher producers. And a lot of my conversations with like the individual licensees that have been in for, 15 to 20 years, I kept running into this conversation about a lack of wealth building, legacy building, retirement of any sort, right? It was always, oh, I'll put a couple $1,000, from my next transaction or over towards retirement. What have we been doing for 15 years? And I don't mean to, really have that be a backhanded slap to anybody, but we need to start really focusing on the critical elements of setting ourselves up, setting our futures up by taking advantage and actively participating in the industry we are absolute experts in, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer when it comes out, but for whatever reason, a lot of real estate professionals aren't taking advantage of it. And it could be because they don't have the cash flow, they don't have the understanding, they don't have the support and resources on the investing side of the world. But really all they need to do is focusing on how to control a percentage, right? So you have your real estate transaction and you have that 2.5 to 3% control that you get paid out on in, cash at the end of it through commissions. Well, what if we started talking in a different manner, so to speak, using different verbiage to go, hey, I've got 3%, 2.5%, whatever it is in this transaction. How do I get 7%? How do I get 10%? Right? Because that now allows you to leverage the time that you're going to put in anyway to having a different conversation and just entrenching yourself more in the money conversation rather than just watching it exchange right in front of your eyes.
I like how that was really well put. I like that kind of that analogy. And when you kind of talk to people in that scenario, they start kind of thinking different because, of course, everything starts with the mindset of there. And
Right.
kind of just going to my next point of how are they able to then, you mentioned, like I said, just elements of just knowing and learning and from that. And of course, you're helping them where you're talking to, big time producers there. And also kind of touched on a point regarding the kind of the pitfalls. And I would say it's just more so not being aware that you should be involved into that money aspect of that. So yeah, that's like I said, there's some great points there. And just kind of learn a little bit more about you. I know, like I said, you have a large team, your coaching business, your investing business. Can you kind of take us through kind of like a typical working day for you? And do you have any special morning routines?
Yeah, man. So what's interesting is we just ended up transferring from our own personal brokerage, which was an investment driven brokerage and having a big team over with another brokerage, kind of looking at some foresight and grouping together with some bigger resources to get us there faster. My brokerage was built on the premise of taking some of the commission dollars and setting them aside into a fund and building a fund with our members so that they could participate in real estate investments without having to do it on their own. So each transaction, we would take 50%, we throw it in this fund, and then we go find a deal and we have them participate with the aspect of earning them a return on those dollars without them having to actively take part. Does that make sense?
I love that idea.
So,
Awesome.
well, yeah, I mean, what it is it's a forced savings, right? Like I got so tired of hearing the conversation where I was like, okay, if you're not going to do it for yourself, I'm going to do it for you. Right. And here's the agreement. This is what it looks like. So it was a really, really cool design. We built that fund up to about 100,000. We ended up aligning synergistically with another company to continue that same thought. These guys just have a whole different level of resources so that we can go cash infusion a little bit bigger scale as we move forward. So again, looking at relationships, looking at our network, and figuring out where the resources are and attaching ourselves to those resources so that we can ride the coattails rather than having to have all this pressure, all this, built up on our shoulders to be the one and only producer. It's like, man, there are so many different levels of economies of scale and efficiencies that are out there. You're just missing a conversation to get you there, right? In that regard. So, so what I did is I kicked everybody off my team. I turned them into individual real estate professionals so that as they do transactions, they're able to participate in this investment fund. Okay. So now what I'm doing is I'm purely focused on building the investment arm of this brokerage, which is totally something new that they're looking to do. And in doing so, we look to attract more real estate professionals that are looking to build wealth and legacy down the road. So my days are pretty straightforward. I mean, I have a natural level of business that comes in. So, we're continuing to take care of those clients that come in. But more, I'm focused on resources. I'm focused on opportunities, developments, right? And where I can potentially build up future cash flow, future returns, future investments on behalf of our group.
And one thing I really like about that is that because you kind of think about from the statistical side, the typical agent that either goes in, don't produces a high amount, or they kind of burn out and they kind of utilize that as kind of like
Right.
like a secondary type of thing and not really focus on it. But if they come in with the mindset of like, not only I make transactions, but I'm going to be building legacy wealth, it's a whole different mindset. They go in, they're going to be working harder. They're going to be making their contacts because they're thinking about it just not from a transactional standpoint, that they're thinking about it like long term. It's going to totally change the game and also make any brokerage, especially yours, more attractive as a hub for people to come in, because it's like a total different thing from kind of the traditional route where you just call, make deals, and and make a little transactions here and there, but it's really nothing on the flip side. So I love that idea. That's awesome. And
Yeah, and if I can, sorry, I'm just going to go just a small, quick tangent, real quick, right? Because I see EXP. Well, I shouldn't mention, but I see these share programs, right? Profit share, rev share, share, and it's like that's great. That's amazing, right? We've turned the real estate industry into a recruiting industry on the transaction side. Cool. And really, there's nothing against it. I kind of say it tongue in cheek, right? But what happens when the cash infusion enters into our markets and they start soaking up the transactions, right? If we're not prepared, if we're not versed in how to make money outside of the transaction, then we're going to become extinct really, really quick. So setting our members up with the insight of how to do investments, creating a fund on their behalf, and actively pushing these guys toward. I mean, we're building a vehicle for wealth right next to their real estate business. So the two run parallel, side by side, because that's my biggest concern, is that we have this big cash infusion. So take Portland real estate. The same producer has been the biggest producer over the last 10 years, year in, year out, number one. This was the first year that that individual got knocked off, and they got knocked off by, I think it was Open Door,
Mm.
right? Which is just pure cash infusion. And that should open up our eyes a little bit to go, okay, there's a potential it's coming. Why not get ourselves versed? Why not prepare to be more involved in the investment side so we know how to go find those transactions and create an opportunity for our future? Because ultimately, if you do it right, then it's okay if your business starts experiencing lower transactional, numbers in that regard, because you set yourself up, you kind of built a moat and insulated your business a little bit from anything that's market dependent. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then to kind of further
Yeah.
that point, Rich, this discussion is starting to expand more when you have like services like Zillow and things like that, which are turning into the home buying business and kind of
Yep.
really pushing agents out. So if you're not coming in with like a really strong brand or market share or kind of just like kind of some type
Right.
of advantage, eventually it's going to be some type of squeezing and some type of fluctuation. And of course, we've seen, of course, this year with some fluctuations with the market with COVID and
Right.
everything. But yeah, having this as kind of, you mentioned like the parallel that's working together, that you're just having two things happen at the same time is just kind of further insulates you and insulate your
Right.
business and just kind of keep you moving forward regardless of what happens. So that's
Yep.
definitely key. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that you introduced that to your firm. And like I said, that's definitely some huge tips for brokers that are out there that should be implementing some type of protocol like this. And as far as kind of like just day-to-day stuff, do you use any particular tools or resources to help you manage your team and your day?
I don't have too many specific. So I live in Alaska, and we're a little wild west out here. I mean, there's definitely systems and platforms and everything along those lines. I have a very uh, basic routine where I know I can go into MLS and I can find transactions. I have a phone that has all my contacts, all my network. Like I don't need to make it any harder than that. I use Excel for my analysis, right? So when it comes to systems and some of the tech forward stuff, I don't utilize it a lot. I tend to utilize tech as an excuse to spend my time, because that's what I mean. If I need to go get some leads, I know where to go get some leads, right? But at the time when we were running the big business, right, the leverage tools were much more important. I haven't relied on them, haven't needed to in that regard, because I've got a very straightforward, uh, not necessarily prehistoric, but very general, basic approach to this. It's if I need to make some contacts because I have a deal or need to make a deal, right? I know exactly where to go. I go and I call them. I have a conversation. There's nothing more that I really need. Now that could be because of a lack of scale that in regards to the experience I'm having with my business right now. I don't need some big massive system because I have everything at my disposal and it's all very straightforward stuff. Sorry, that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but I mean that's just real.
Well, like, 'cause a lot of times the simpler the better. So like we came on here
Right.
and had some small technical difficulties with the technology, and a lot of times just picking up the phone is like the most straightforward thing you do, or outside of the pandemic we're experiencing, just meeting someone in a coffee shop or somewhere and just meeting them directly, and then kind of getting stuff done. And like I said, it's just really about that touch. We're really in a touch business, so I know other people
Right.
utilize other systems that works well for them, but nothing beats the basics. So definitely, I
No,
love it.
well, I mean, across this industry, right? We all have a little bit of a squirrel mentality. We're naturally attracted to the shiny things, and there's new shiny things that come out every single stinking day, and it takes us far. For me, it takes me a little farther away from the core of where my strengths are and where my activities that I should be focusing are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the leverage is in understanding where my strengths and how to utilize my strengths lie and continue to focus on that, even when that new shiny thing comes out, to go, okay, I know where I need to be. That may be something I can consider. And if it makes sense, great, bring it in, test it out. But otherwise, I have my core activities I focus on.
Yeah, and that's definitely key there. Is like I said, just bringing out your core strength, and that could be just different for other people, but you're able to tap into those and whichever tools and whatever works best for you. So I always ask that question to all of the guests because, like I said, it's always interesting learning what successful people are doing. And a lot of times, it's just like as simple as phone call and a piece of pad, and some people may use some type of technology. So I appreciate you sharing that. And lastly, I always ask my guests, and is this like something that I always do and always think about, and I said I always want to share this question with you is, what are you most grateful for?
um, you know, I've been super fortunate to understand the power of the conversation and building relationships. There's a certain amount of leverage that comes with just picking up the phone or having that conversation. So I'm super grateful for the network, the universe bringing different people into my world, and opening up the opportunity for conversations like this one, right? Because it's allowed me to have success, but more importantly, learn and understand what it is to be successful. I mean, right? Success is a level that you create in your mind. If you continue to watch everybody else and what their success is, you'll never internally reach your own level of success. And so being able to be surrounded with some really talented, really smart individuals that ultimately I had to go find, but being surrounded by those folks to help me understand my level of success, what success means to me, has really been everything for me. It's relieved a lot of pressure to, perform at a level that really didn't speak to me. I was capable of, but didn't speak to me, and to kind of sit into my groove and a lifestyle that makes sense for myself, for my family, and for our community to a level.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And then finally, how do we get in touch with you and make sure to have all the show notes so everyone can kind of get in touch with you, but you have some information you're willing to share with us?
Yeah. They can either go to the website, legacybeyondlistings.com, or shoot me an email, joe@joebell.life, LIF as in Frank E. But folks can go out to the website, and I've got a little scheduler, kind of like what you have on yours through Calendly, where they can click on and schedule some time with me. It's kind of the fun part. I initially jumped into this, side of the world to go into coaching. And through having more of these conversations, the scale in that wasn't necessarily what I was wanting. So now I'm just like, hey, if you want to have a conversation, you want to, kind of shoot the breeze and ask some questions, let's have a conversation. There's, no pressure. Like, let's just see how I might be able to help you, because that's really what I'm in this for.
Very nice. So make sure to include that. But Joe, it was a pleasure to speak with you. With a fellow owner, operator, broker, investor. So it's good to hear what you guys are doing over there. And like I said, definitely for the people who are listening, that is in the same real estate professional category, and kind of thinking about their legacy beyond listings. We really appreciate you, and look forward to connecting with you again soon. All the best.
No, Dwayne, pleasure's all mine, man. I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Take care, my friend.
All right. Thanks.